Love is a natural part of the human experience. Whether it's familiar or romantic, we all express love in one form or another. For the Dere archetypes, their expression of love is usually bundled up with their Dere side, the more cute side, in contrast to their other facets. Such as tsunderes being aggressively and outwardly harsh, there is one Dere archetype who takes on a more wicked and creepy approach that extends across their Dere side, the yanderes. Yanderes are more of a rarity when grouped up in a character roster consisting of other archetypes, sometimes even opted out by the writer entirely when they are not needed. However, when they are included in a show, they are easily the most standout character, often due to how noticeable their characteristics are, opposite to how other Dere types work, where their primary characteristic is the prominent and default mode, like tsunderes being hostile or kureis being cool and distant. Yanderes act normal, and their Dere side are shown first in the forefront. It's only during specific moments where their secondary characteristic manifests and their iconic Yandere mode appears, acting like the sick, twisted people their archetype is infamous for. As with tsunderes, yanderes are made up of two words. Dere is the common trait it shares with other Dere archetypes, meaning love-struck or affectionate. This is their more subdued trait, as it is outwardly shown to be their normal appearance, acting like a kind, well-adjusted human being. The other half of the word comes from yanderu, meaning sickly or ill. This doesn't mean the person is physically unwell. It applies more to their mental health, their loving side acting crazy and insane, manifesting in traits like obsession or other mental health problems like sociopathy or psychopathy. Bear with me on this history detour, but from what I gathered while researching the origins of the yandere, many point to the concept of Yamato Nadeshiko. This is an archetype of a girl who is a Neo-Confucian ideal woman in Japan, starting from the 19th century. Yamato is an older, more poetic name for Japan, while Nadeshiko is a Dianthus superbus, which is a wildflower found in the Japanese highlands. Yamato and Nadeshiko together mean something like the flower of Japanese womanhood. This ideal is what can be seen as a standard for which alternate versions of Japanese femininity are created from, such as the Dere archetypes, the modern girl, a career woman, and the self-independent woman. The yandere archetype functions as a dark deconstruction of the Yamato Nadeshiko ideal by taking its core tenets of devotion and selflessness to a terrifying, illogical extreme. The Yamato Nadeshiko is characterized by grace, modesty, inner strength, and unwavering support for her man and home. A yandere initially mirrors this persona, appearing gentle, sweet, and perfectly devoted to her love interest. However, this outwardly serene surface conceals a profound mental instability. The perfect, unending devotion expected of the ideal woman becomes a monstrous, suffocating obsession, transforming the inner strength of the Nadeshiko into a violent, possessive paranoia. According to many sources, the original yandere seen in Japanese folklore is Kiyohime, often cited as the original psychotic lover in Japanese folk tales. The tale recounts how Kiyohime, a village maiden, became utterly infatuated with the Buddhist monk Ankin. I won't go too in depth as Gaijin Guma made a great video on the lore of Kiyohime, but basically her obsession was so powerful that it physically transformed her into a monstrous fire-breathing serpent, which pursued her love. Unable to truly be happy with him, she coiled around him and incinerated the monk alive, killing them both. This tragedy of betrayed love driving a woman to self-destructive madness is directly referenced in the Fate incarnation of Kiyohime, where she is a summonable berserker-class servant whose madness is tied to her complete obsession and inability to tolerate lies from her master. Of course, mentally ill obsessive lovers aren't just exclusive to Japanese or Eastern media. The most significant influence from the West is the character Alex Forrest from the 1987 film Fatal Attraction, whose obsessive stalking and violence gave rise to the English slang term bunny boiler. Other examples like Annie Wilkes from Misery and Joe Goldberg from You showcase this universal narrative of intense, possessive devotion that transforms into terrifying, psychotic obsession. And oddly enough, the titular character from the 1910 novel The Phantom of the Opera, whose love leads to isolation and extreme measures, can also be considered a yandere. With that history detour out of the way, let's discuss the fun parts. What are the key characteristics of yanderes, and how do they function in the story? The first major one is the mask, the Dere side. This is usually presented as a sweet and unassuming normal person. Compared to the other Dere types who show their other facet first, The yanderes have their Deri side displayed first as a way to disarm the viewer's expectations. It's then revealed later in the story their other key facets shown to the audience. The most popular characteristic they are known for is their unnerving obsessiveness, which is driven by the yandere's deep love for their love interest. The reason for this obsession with the main character is up to the writer, whether they go as deep as filling an emotional void or as simple as just plain kindness towards them. Regardless of the reason, the common root cause is always fear of abandonment. They need the main character to fill in the void of isolation, or else they would lash out if anything would compromise their attachment to their love interest. This is displayed in their second key characteristic, their serial killer tendencies. A popular way to depict the lengths a yandere would go for preserving their love is to literally eliminate any questionable variables, whether it's killing their love interest's friends or enemies, or literally any of the competition of possible girls for the love interest to choose from. Their choice of weapon is usually a knife, as it is easy to find and conceal, but other options include guns, axes, and the ability to warp their metafictional reality. Other serial killer tactics include gaslighting or isolation tactics, anything psychological to ensure their love interest is only for them. Something that is very apparent for all yanderes is their mental instability, along with having possible signs of psychological disorders. They either have low self-esteem, high dependency, prone to jealousy, or usually have a traumatic backstory. These have real-world illusions, as they are represented as bordering on psychosis, delusion, or obsessive-compulsive disorder. This is all what their yandere side represents, their sickly or ill side, an unchecked psychological symptom projected onto their world. The prime example of the yandere, and quite literally the poster child who popularized the archetype in this day, is the yandere queen herself, Yuno Gasai from Future Diary. She solidified all the tropes seen in the archetype and those who came after her. Tropes such as obsession for her lover, extreme lengths to keep them to herself like murder or manipulation, and has a clear and obvious history of mental disorders, all while having an outwardly cute appearance when not in yandere mode. Other such examples of yandere include Anna from Shimoneta, Kotonoha and Sakai from School Days, and Sato from Happy Sugar Life. All great examples that showcase the popular traits and appeal of yanderes. Now, while the stereotypical yandere is usually presented as a deranged female, there is a greater discussion to be had regarding the gender dynamics of yanderes for both males and females and their respective counterparts. Love is a human experience that almost everyone has been acquainted with, whether on the giving or receiving end. The yandere represents the ultimate fantasy of unconditional devotion, taken to a terrifying extreme. At its core, the archetype explores the universal human desire to feel special, validated, and like the absolute center of someone else's world. The enduring appeal lies in the yearning for a partner who will go to any length to protect you. While this intense focus is presented as a pathology in the trope, it taps directly into the romantic ideal of a love so profound it is all-consuming. The stereotypical female yandere, prevalent in anime and visual novels, functions as a terrifying twist on the Yamato Nadeshiko. Their extreme actions, often seen in stalking, manipulating, or outright murder, are generally framed as a response to the threat of loss, positioning her as a possessive protector of the relationship itself. For some male audiences, their appeal rests on the fantasy of a partner whose love is so complete that their status is secured through her effort and violence alone, offering validation without requiring equivalent effort in return. Male yandere archetypes, while less common in mainstream anime, thrive in genres like otome games, romantasy, also known as romantic fantasy, contemporary young adult stories, or dark romance fiction, appealing heavily to female audiences. Here, the character often embodies an obsessive controlling personality, whose love translates directly into a desire for domination and security over the female protagonist. His extreme methods are often cast as a twisted form of power and competence, a partner who is so capable and devoted they will forcibly remove all threats, giving their heroine a sense of absolute protection and security, albeit at the cost of her own autonomy. The popular series Hunting Adeline offers a prime example where the love interest Zaid is a vigilante and a stalker, driven by a relentless violent obsession to reclaim and possess the heroine. The dynamic capitalizes on the desire for a powerful partner who views the heroine as their irreplaceable precious world, On the anime side, a popular male yandere example would be Toma from the 2013 anime Amnesia. He's a classic male yandere that is basically the boy version of Yunogasai. He presents himself as loving and helpful to the protagonist, with his yandere reveal being a shocking plot twist. He even locks the girl in the cage. What the heck? The yandere archetype ultimately serves as a lens to explore divergent, often unhealthy gendered romantic fantasies. For many male consumers, the female yandere represents the seductive illusion of effortless and all-consuming validation, a partner whose life revolves entirely around them, fulfilling the desire to be an unquestioned center of devotion. Conversely, for many female consumers, the male yandere embodies the wish for absolute security and decisive action, translating love into a powerful, albeit toxic, form of total protection and control. In both cases, the trope highlights the dark side of wanting a partner whose affection is intense and unconditional. Now, while yanderes are an iconic archetype in the dairy lineup, they haven't seen much usage in anime media nowadays. In the 2010s, they were one of the most popular archetypes. However, they are also very much a product of their time. The 2010s for anime was highly dominated by dark and edgy stories, most often deconstructions of famous genres like magical girl, fantasy, and of course, romance. However, as with most trends, what is considered popular tends to shift and change over time as the needs of the consumer evolve. My theory as to why the yandere isn't such a dominating force as it was back in the 2010s is due to a cultural genre shift. The popular and rising trend for anime now, at least in the 2020s, are isekai and wish fulfillment power fantasies, especially those of the male gaze, as seen in popular series like Solo Leveling and Rising of the Shield Hero. The dynamics have been inverted where the MC has to put in little effort towards their actions or goals since they are crazy overpowered for whatever fucking reason. This effortlessness extends to the romance side as well. Love interests would just flock to the MC's harem, regardless of gender. Because of this pop culture shift, as well as a new wave of anime fans coming into the fandom, many realize they don't want a crazy psycho to be included for their love options. Instead, romance is shifting to characters who indulge in otaku interests, like Marin from Dress Up Darling, or having a docile and easily compatible nature, like Haruko from The Fragrant Flower Blooms. And in many fantasy isekai stories, the harems often include the standard tsundere, dandere, and kudere, but the yandere is usually opted out as it possesses a potential risk in their cozy wish fulfillment life. Of course, I'm not saying yanderes have gone completely extinct. The idea of an obsessive and jealous psychotic lover will always be a trope that persists throughout time. My favorite example of the modern yandere is Eiko from the underrated horror series Dark Gathering. She has the staples of the yandere archetype, maintaining a dairy side that appears as a normal woman, and behind the scenes has obsessive delusions for the main character. However, she sort of acts like a subversion of the archetype. She doesn't appear to be a serial killer or even wanting to kill others for the sake of their loved ones. Instead, she is fascinated by the concept of fear and horror itself, wanting to see the MC overcome the situations they find themselves in, while also being able to hold her own in these horrific situations. These situations that she sometimes orchestrates through her own manipulation of the MC. And outside of these creepy expressions of her love, her yandere side actually works in tandem with her dairy side. She is one of the more recent examples of a yandere and how the legacy of the yandere is transforming in the modern age. The full transformation and modernization of the yandere can be seen in the Menhera and Jirai-Kei archetypes, crazy and mentally ill girls that represent the troubles and woes of the internet landscape. Because of the internet, many people are able to connect with others never before seen on this scale in all of human history. Through YouTube and streaming culture, parasocial relationships have begun to emerge as a phenomenon. Human connection is going through turbulent times in this modern day and age, and the parasocial behaviors can perpetuate one's already existing mental illness, obsession for their idols, sense of isolation, and yearning for connection. Delving more into the Menhera archetype, Menhera is a slang term for mental health. It broadly describes a person, typically a woman, who is emotionally unstable or struggling with mental health issues. It can be used as a derogatory term or a genuine descriptor. The aesthetic is most closely associated with yami kawaii, or sickly cute fashion, which uses dark themes, medical motifs like band-aids and pills, and gloomy iconography to express internal distress. And I would even say Jirai-kei is an extension of the Menhera. While Jirai-kei is mostly referring to the aesthetic and stereotype of Menhera, one could say presenting oneself as Jirai-kei is fully embracing the Menhera archetype, mental issues and aesthetic and all. A prime example of the Menhera archetype can be seen in the hit 2022 indie game Needy Streamer Overload, where the main character Ami-chan exemplifies the Menhera tropes, everything from mental instability to the dual personality, the associated commentary on the internet landscape, and the aesthetic of Yami Kawaii. Her Ami-chan persona has a more modern goth Victorian-inspired attire, while her K-Angel persona leans more in the pastel kawaii pop look that is popular in Japan, but it's also reminiscent of city pop aesthetics. She, along with the Menhera archetype, are what modernization of the yandere looks like, fully capitalizing on the internet age and the social commentary that comes with it. While the traditional yandere of the 2010s, the knife-wielding serial killer driven solely by love and jealousy, has receded from the anime mainstream, the underlying trope of the twisted and obsessive lover still persists and evolves today. The surge of the yandere was a product of its time, perfectly aligned with the dark deconstructive trends prevalent a decade ago. Now in the era of wish-fulfilled narratives, the raw psychological risk of the old-school yandere is often avoided. However, the energy of the instability has simply transformed into modern forms that incorporate contemporary social commentary. The lasting appeal of the psychotic lover is evident in its modern examples: the manipulation and fear obsession of Eiko from Dark Gathering, the existential terror in the video game from Mita and My Side, and the mental health commentary provided by the Menhera trope, exemplified by Ami-chan from Needy Streamer Overload. These figures confirm that while the aesthetic shifts, the fascination with love pushed beyond sanity maintains its dark and undeniable staying power in a medium that allows us to explore the twisted sides of humanity. The yandere might not be in the room with us right now, but their legacy will always be haunting anime till the end of time. Also, please watch Dark Gathering. Please, I need another season. Please watch it. It's so good!